Well, greetings, everyone. Welcome to this edition, the October gathering of the EcoNet network call of Move to Amend. I'm Greg Coleridge, one of the co-directors of Move to Amend, and so glad that you have chosen to spend a few minutes with us this evening. We have a really wonderful program for you. Some of the usual items and a very special speaker. So basically, how this program works, as it does every month, is we'll do a little bit of grounding, and then we'll move to our main program where we put a spotlight on what we call our warrior, nonviolent warrior, that is. All important to emphasize that these days. And then we will turn the tables and if you will, the spotlight onto you to hear what you are up to in your part of the world in promoting a livable world in a democratic way, hopefully. That'll be followed by some very brief Move to Med updates and some announcements in terms of call to action of what we can do where we are and beyond to promote a livable world and democracy, real democracy for the very first time, and then announcing our next call. So for the grounding, I guess, since we are so new into this new season, as we make the cycle as we do every year from season to season, if you would not mind putting in the chat, if you have not yet put your name and where you're from, add to it. What is something that you are particularly looking forward to, whether it's something that you have done each and every autumn season or something that may be brand new? So let's take a minute, if you don't mind, and add that to the chat. Tis time, is it not, to put gardens to bed? No, whooping cranes. Very nice, Lawrence. Quite a number. Looking forward to spending time with family and friends, as Tara says, a friend who is experiencing some illness, and hope your presence adds comfort. Oh, wonderful. Daily walk along the water. Well, great. Appreciate you doing that, and feel free to add to that if you care to along the way. So we're going to begin. We're going to start with our main warrior spotlight. So I'd like to introduce Jonathan Berg, who is a member and plays a very important role with the Sunrise movement in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas. Um, Jonathan is helping to advance their organizing and strategic efforts around climate justice in all of its forms and building people power, which those two go together. We're not really going to achieve anything, are we, in the climate justice movement, democracy movement, any movement, unless we build authentic people power, locally and nationally, and they do go together. We're really glad to have you, Jonathan, here with us this evening and hope to continue deepening our just beginning collaboration between Sunrise and Move to Mend in your part of the world, along with Alfonso, who's on this call, and that hopefully might be projected upwards or downwards, depending on how you want to look at it, from the local to the federal. So without further ado, the virtual floor is yours. Welcome, Jonathan.
Great. Thank you very much, Greg. It's already been a great pleasure to collaborate with Move to Amend, with the great event that we had back in September. So I just have a few slides I'll share. Can everybody see them? Yes, all good? Okay,
Yep.
great. So yeah, my name is Jonathan Berg. I'm a lead in the Sunrise Movement RGV Hub. So I'll be telling you a little about the Sunrise National Movement as well as what we're doing locally. So the Sunrise Movement was founded in 2017 and with the focus of supporting the Green New Deal and Green New Deal candidates. And it's a youth-led movement targeting big action on climate change and really targeting the main drivers and powers behind the climate change crisis. And so the main problem that we're facing with the climate crisis is that climate change from fossil fuels is destroying our planet, destroying our health, destroying our economy, and just you and I, just regular working people, we're the ones that have to bear the cost, both the human, environmental, and financial. And here are just a few, pictures from, environmental and climate related disasters that we've experienced in the US just this year. So
Hmm.
on the left, that's a picture from the horrific California Palisades fires
Hmm.
that's devastated so much of the city. In the center, that's a picture from devastating flooding that we had here in South Texas, in Harlingen, and much of the
Hmm.
rest of Rio Grande Valley. Some of the worst flooding that the area experienced in years. Thousands of homes were flooded and destroyed, and 3 people died in those floods back in March. And down at the bottom right, that's a picture from the horrific Central Texas floods that happened on 4th of July, which were very, very sudden, very catastrophic, and killed over 100 people, including, nearly 30 young girls at Camp Mystic. So the climate crisis, is a real crisis and has a real cost. Um, but as we all know, I'm sure you all in Move to Amend are very familiar with, this crisis did not come out of nowhere. It's caused by a specific group of people. Oh, and here is just, showing, on a larger scale, sort of how the climate crisis is affecting the entire nation. And of course, is repeated across the world. This is a list of $27 billion weather and climate disasters
Hmm.
in 2024 only. So that doesn't include any of the ones I just talked about. So that's, hurricanes, floods, tornadoes, fires, hail, winter storms. And so these kind of disasters inflict a real cost on all of us, and it's only getting worse. And now the people that are responsible for people and organizations that are responsible for the climate crisis and failing to act on the climate crisis, I'm sure are very familiar to all of us. So it's a small group of extremely wealthy oil and gas corporations and the billionaires and ultra wealthy people who run them. And they are enabled by the politicians and the people who are supposed to be our leaders and are supposed to be representing us. And there's this, they have this relationship with each other where the fossil fuel billionaires will provide, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in campaign contributions um, to politicians at the state, local, and federal level, or threaten to spend that money against them. And in return, they get, it's effectively trillions of dollars of subsidies, either explicitly from taxpayers, or implicitly by shifting the costs, away from the people causing them and onto us, you and me. And they do this is not it's not only, I mean, Republicans are the worst, but they are not the only ones. And and Democrats do as well. And these images are sort of more Texas focused because that's where we are locally based. That's our Senator Ted Cruz and Governor Greg Abbott pictured there. And for a very specific reason, because they are some of the top recipients of oil and gas contributions in Texas, which includes, both of the senators and the governor receiving over $1 million, and, several U.S. representatives receiving hundreds of thousands. And there at the bottom, Vicente Gonzalez is, my representative here in Brownsville. Monica De La Cruz is just up the valley and other part of the Rio Grande Valley. And yes, Vicente Gonzalez is a Democrat, but here in Texas and in many other parts of the country, being a Democrat doesn't stop someone from being part of the enabling of the climate crisis and enabling big oil and gas. So, what are we going to do about it? So, this is where the Sunrise Movement comes in, and the Sunrise Movement is focused on, addressing this problem not just through individual actions, but addressing the people at their source. And so the Sunrise Movement is building a movement of young people across race and class to stop the climate crisis and win a Green New Deal. We're going to force the government to end the reign of fossil fuel elites, invest in Black, brown, and working class communities, and create millions of good union jobs. Our mission is to put everyday people back in charge and build a world that works for all of us, for now and for future generations. And so it sounds, very sunny and rosy and fantastical, but it has been achieved. We in Sunrise Movement, we have won victories before, and so that's how we know we're able to do it again. It was after it was founded in 2017, was before I was a part of it. The Sunrise Movement led, mass demonstrations, sit-ins, including in Nancy Pelosi's office, um, you know, uh, directly confronting, representatives at all level of politics, as well as supporting candidates that were in favor of a Green New Deal, including AOC. And through the consistent pressure, through demonstrating the popularity and of the mass action, like the protests, seeing the pictures here, many or several Green New Deal priorities were passed as law in the Inflation Reduction Act, which is passed by the Biden administration. So the victories in the past show that these kinds of strategies, do work, and we can win real, tangible victories that, do put money where it needs to go to address the climate crisis. And so we here in Sunrise, Rio Grande Valley, we are one part of that solution. So we are the local hub of the national movement. And as a local chapter, we're empowering the community with the knowledge and tools to achieve climate solutions that help our local community in the RGV. But all that with an eye at the bigger problem and a bigger goal of challenging the corporations and the politicians that are exploiting the people and land. There, pictured on the top right, that is um, shows a Sunrise Movement along with a few other local organizations doing a protest at a local parade called Shadow Days, which is a local holiday in February. And there in the bottom, that map is depicting, all the hubs and chapters around the country, which are, cities and states, everywhere across the U.S. And so just a little bit about what we specifically have been up to here in the Rio Grande Valley hub of the Sunrise Movement. So the local hub was restarted last fall in November, and by a small group of volunteers at a Weaving Food Webs farm in Edinburgh, which is owned by one of our members and one of our leads who's still highly active and central to the organization. In January, we became an official hub of the national movement. And in February, we met in the South Texas Environmental Justice Office to begin our first campaign. And that campaign was focused on our local billionaire polluter, which is Elon Musk. And while he is not sort of directly own a fossil fuel company, his companies are highly polluting. Here locally in the RGV, he owns SpaceX, which is responsible for really horrible environmental destruction of a local beach and sort of taking away, access to that beach from the people. So we worked with some other local organizations um, on a letter writing campaign, and we had thousands of letters sent to the Brownsville city commissioners, sort of demanding that they sort of end the cozy relationship that the city has with Elon Musk and with SpaceX. And it was especially pertinent in the beginning of the year when Elon Musk had a very close relationship with the Trump administration and a very high profile. And so the entire country could see what we've seen here in the Valley of how horrible and destructive someone like him can be. Uh, and so we continued those very local sort of protest actions into February and March. We worked with our partner organizations to put around flyers, we canvassed, and we protested at the local parades, against SpaceX. And then in collaboration with the community, we staged a protest at the Brownsville State of the City address, where over 80 people attended to demonstrate our anger at the complicity of our local officials with a such a big polluter that had such disregard for the community. Okay. And then in March, that was sort of like a sort of a turning point where we started to, broaden our reach, across the valley. And that's when the Harlingen and much of the rest of the valley experienced the devastating March floods, which were, historic, and very sudden. And, it was really sort of the biggest sort of weather disaster that the valley had experienced, in recent years. So yeah, and so there's a few images. So, the water like came up, very quickly, and it really demonstrated, I mean, one, severity of the climate crisis, but also how unprepared the community is. It's one thing if this happens, every few decades, but if this is happening every few years or every year, suddenly, our home is not livable anymore. Um, So I was just going a little bit slowly. But yeah, so then following from March, that's when we started to sort of broaden our focus from sort of these protest actions and looking more towards other actions, such as focus on mutual aid and protecting the community from the devastating effects of climate change. And so, during this last summer, we did a wide variety of different activities. So the main ones were distributing disaster preparation supplies and educational materials. And so we tabled at different events across the Rio Grande Valley. So there are a few pictures on the left side. That's me in one of them, and that's Yeli and Katie, two of other leads, in the other photo there, as we distributed supplies that were generously donated to us, as well as informational materials. That's you can see there. That's Prepare with Pedro education materials, which were produced by NOAA, and which are great, sort of like family friendly and kid friendly materials. And we had like such excellent reception at these events. People care about climate change. They care about the effect climate change is having on their lives, and they want to know what they can do. We also did some sort of like research as well. So some of our members researched, looked into the impacts of climate change in the valley, and specifically how the March floods, impacted the people and communities in the valley. And we also, held different, fun and engaging activities for our member base. So there on the right, there's a picture, or the far right, that's us at the Valley Nature Center, which is a beautiful, like nature center in the city of Weslaco, where we had a meeting and then, walked and, enjoyed the nature that we're trying to protect. And there in the picture of the water, that's on South Padre Island, where one of our leads, Don, who's a biologist, spoke to us about the diversity and importance of the Laguna Madre Bay ecosystem and how climate change is impacting it. And through these different kinds of activities and membership drives, we grew to over 50 members over the summer. And so we were the second fastest growing hub in the entire country, I think only behind New York. And we became one of the top 10 biggest hubs in the whole country. And also, uh, we are one of the, if not the most Hispanic representation of any hubs in the country. And so a big focal point of the activities in the summer was the July rally at the Texas state capitol. So this has followed the devastating Central Texas floods, in which the girls at Camp Mystic were tragically killed. And this
Mm,
was our first coordinated action with other hubs throughout Texas. So a few of our members and other members across the state joined together on short notice in the Capitol and staged a protest against the state government and the federal government for enabling the climate crisis and defunding the agencies that are protecting us, like FEMA and NOAA. And the central action was our members laying 27 life vests in the center of the
mm,
Texas state capitol to represent
mm.
the 27 girls whose lives were tragically lost, um, and whose lives shouldn't have been lost. And so now, as we're moving away from these sort of direct, sort of local impact actions for the summer, we're expanding our view in coordination with the national movement to focus our efforts on, making changes at the government level. And so in early September, we launched our local Make Polluters Pay campaign. And this is part of a campaign run by the National Sunrise Movement. And the idea behind the Make Polluters Pay campaign, or MPP, is to support and pass legislation at state and federal levels to put the costs of damage from climate change onto the polluters and onto fossil fuel companies so that we're not the ones paying for the mess that they're causing. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And then part of that broader effort, on September 13th, we worked with Move to Amend to have a screening of the movie The New Corporation, which if you guys have seen it or if you haven't, it's sort of discussing the exact same themes of um, that we're specifically dealing with fossil fuels, but on a broader level, and how billionaires and their companies are, controlling all levels of political activity. And and so as we move later into the fall, so we're continuing our Make Polluters Pay campaign by putting pressure on our local municipalities to support this MPP measure. And looking forward, we're also starting to look towards local candidates who are supportive of a Green New Deal and similar policies who we can support and potentially endorse. And then farther ahead, sort of as a longer view, coordinating with the national campaign and other hubs, we're looking towards doing sort of days of mass action in May. So starting with sort of smaller protests this May, but looking towards uh, organizing a mass general strike in 2028 to put forward our demands for any Democrats who are going to be running, that they need to support the ideals and the policies of a Green New Deal, because our generation, like the youth of this country, we need there to be a response. And so just to go a little more detail of our Make Polluters Pay campaign and what that entails. So this is sort of a short summary of the petition that we've started, which states that the state of Texas must create a climate superfund to make polluters pay for the damages they cause to our health, economy, and environment. We must reinvest polluter fees to fund climate resilient infrastructure, disaster relief, and worker protections. And in the Rio Grande Valley, this includes floodproofing our cities, providing hurricane assistance, planting trees to keep our neighborhood cool, expanding health programs, and protecting our biodiversity. And specifically, we're calling on three local cities, McAllen, Edinburgh, and Mission, to pass resolutions supporting climate sewer fund legislation. Now, this kind of legislation is not something that is totally new. So, New York State and the state of Vermont have already passed climate superfund legislation. And what it does is it imposes fees on fossil fuel polluters, especially with more fees for the bigger polluters like your Exxons or your Chevrons. And then using those fees to pay for resilience against climate disasters and also for transitioning to a greener economy and for greener energy sources. And while our chances of having that in Texas may be slimmer than in Vermont, um, this is still a valuable tool for spreading awareness about the issue and for getting, people interested and supportive of the policy in general of having polluters pay for the damage that they are causing. And I'd love for everyone here to stay in touch and keep in touch with the organization. I realize that people are joining from all over. So this is our local Instagram, link to our local Instagram, and sort of interest form for our local hub. And I will post some links in the chat as well, where you can either um, learn more about Sunrise generally or become a supporter if you're interested. And now I'm happy to take any questions that anyone has about Sunrise, either national or RGB.
Well, terrific, Jonathan. Thank you so much for that. So, for individuals who would like to pose any questions or brief comments, you can do so either by raising your physical hand, um, putting your name in the chat with the word
Okay.
speak, or down at the very bottom. You may see an opportunity to, where is it? Under React, to raise your hand in that way.
Yeah,
So one of
Janice,
three ways. So
Janice
I
has her
so
hand
I
up.
see Janice. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I actually joined Sunrise Movement, and I think it was in
all right.
2017 in Houston. I live in Houston, as you can see from my
Hmm.
label. But at the same time, I was attending public banking calls that I had been doing since the previous year. I was a Houstonian for Bernie back then, and we thought we had a great chance. We learned we didn't. So, and I've noticed the Democrats, other than a bill that really has no enforcement or any kind of follow through, sorry to badmouth Democrats, but they haven't done anything that I could see. So, I'm hoping that we can approach this through a non, uh, duopoly approach, and I have some ideas on that I'd love to visit with you about. So I just wanted to introduce myself to you, let you know that Houston, as far as I'm concerned, can be on board. I recently did demographics, and Houston itself has been reaching out and grabbing land, so it has connections with 10 counties right now, which is incredible, and a population listed. You can look it up in Google. Google says Houston has 7 million people right now, according to all that land grabbing. But Harris County itself, including Houston and all the other um, cities that are in Harris County, little home rule cities, equal 5 million people. So we've got a lot of people here. And I think most of the people I talk to are very much on board with what you want done. We just have to get organized and actually be able to do it. So I just wanted to say hi and thank you for your work. Uh, and if, we can be in touch, I'd love that.
Great. Great. Thank you, Janice. That's really good. Nice to hear. Actually, so you said I also volunteered on the Bernie Sanders campaign in Houston in 2016. That was actually my sort of my start, I guess, or the first time I was really in you know, any sort of like political activist roles. So I'm sure our paths must have crossed at that time.
Do you
Oh,
happen to
sorry, you're
know,
mute. Can't hear you.
Jonathan, do you happen to know
Yeah.
whether there's a hub in Houston?
Yeah, I believe there is. I believe there is a Houston hub. So
Yeah, I
uh,
probably saw you at a meeting, and if you wouldn't mind, maybe finding a way through Alfonso and I, who are in touch, or through Greg, we can get me connected more closely with them, and I'd love to work with them again.
sure, great. Yes, no, I'd be happy to make that connection.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Um, I'm just wondering, Jonathan, how do you see, the balance that you feel needs to be achieved in the work between doing the local, both between local and national, but also between work in terms of meeting immediate needs, addressing immediate concerns, problems, disasters, and the like, versus dealing with system change, policy change, changing structures.
Thank you for that question, Greg. I guess I see that they actually complement each other a lot, and sort of one helps the other. So as we're doing some of our local actions, even the very local related things like distributing disaster preparedness equipment, or just talking to the community about how to be prepared for disaster. I mean, that's getting information about Sunrise Movement out. That's lets us open up these conversations with people about climate change, and get them thinking about climate change, and talking to them about who is really responsible. And that those sort of efforts sort of drive help us get more members, get more interest or followers on social media. And so then when we're running these sort of campaigns coordinated with a national movement, we have our local community behind us. So I think it's we're like it's very important to have the familiarity and trust with the local community. Um, when we do try to do these, um, bigger campaigns, and that's not necessarily directly, providing an immediate direct benefit. And then through this sort of national campaigns, like the Make Rulers Pay, we're definitely put a lot of effort into making it very local. So, we look into, how can our, the Rio Grande Valley specifically, benefit from, money collected from, polluter fees, for instance. Like, what do we need specifically locally from what could be, a state or national legislation? So I think they're very interlinked, and like one sort of helps the other. I think that's what we've been finding.
Very good.
Uh,
I see Tara has her hand raised.
Hi, thank you, Jonathan.
You want to say where you're from as well as when
Oh,
people
sure.
identify themselves?
Sacramento, California. And I'm on the national board at Move to Amend.
hmm.
Um, and um, let's see, lost that train of thought. Just thank you. It's inspiring in a lot of ways for me, listening to your stories of everything you all have done. And I'm specifically curious about the mutual aid work and kind of how you what that looks like for your group.
Great. Thank you, Tara. Yeah, so I think that's something that we're sort of gradually building and sort of figuring out the best way to do it. So I think the most direct way that we were doing it over the summer was sort of with tabling at events, and helping with like distributing information, and a few cases, disaster prep material. And so that was sort of organized, we would find sort of relevant organizations, or sort of um, either progressive adjacent, or environmental events, where we could, put up a table and, talk to people and distribute some of these materials, which people were very interested in.
Mhm.
So that was sort of the main one. That's the main way we've done it so far. The other one, or another one related to that, I guess, which thankfully we didn't have to do, but something we discussed the possibility of, is like in the face of a weather disaster, like a climate related disaster, how would we respond, either, you know, beforehand with, trying to source supplies and distribute them, or, afterwards, how to, get, useful materials to people, um, without, interfering with, sort of government level responses. And we know that other hubs, and we've been in conversations with other hubs who have done those sort of things. I think specifically some of the Florida hubs who have done actions sort of around the hurricanes. So those are sort of the main ones have been sort of around, um, climate disasters, here in the valley. I mean, I show you the pictures of the flooding. So we have, floods that happens at times. We're also on the Gulf Coast, so we get hurricanes, and tropical storms, which again, thankfully we didn't get one this year, but that's sort of, I mean, but the year's not over either. Um, so yes, currently that's, I guess it's around sort of those, preparedness for crises like that.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
I see Matthew has his hand up. Please unmute yourself and say where you're from. Oh, you're still on mute.
Right. Sorry, having a little trouble working the controls on my phone, but thank you very much for selecting me. Hi, I'm Matthew, and I'm in the Central Coast of California. I'm a first time coming here to a meeting of either organization, so thank you for having me. I'm concerned about the pace of change, of affecting change on these issues. And I see one of the barriers to change are the reaching the politicians who are empowered to promote or write legislation or put it forward or vote on it. And I'm wondering if the organization has a strategy where there's what the strategy is. Are you approaching just whoever's in office, we're just going to approach them, or are you doing activities to either look for people who want to run, or putting together a platform that you can say, hey, if you politicians will do this, then we'll be able to help you get to office, or we'll back you on your decisions, things like that. So I'm kind of wondering, is there an involvement beyond just contacting
I guess
whoever's in
it's a little
office?
bit of both. Oh, sorry.
Yep, great
Sorry,
question.
sorry. Yeah, thank you, Matthew. So yeah, I think our efforts are sort of on both sides of that. So um, I mean, we're still relatively new and still trying to focus primarily on, growing a member base and growing our name recognition locally, so that um, when we do approach a elected official or a prospective candidate, we have sort of the power of a large group of people behind us. But we are already starting on different activities, so we're doing a little bit of both, I would say. So in the sort of our Make Polluters Pay campaign, um, we are, approaching, the city commissioners, as they are, who are currently, sitting, and we're not looking to um, challenge anyone necessarily, or threaten to challenge anyone. Partly, because they're not up for election for a few years. Um, but also, we want to see, what kind of like relationships we can make. And on a local level, there's, possibly, less of that, big oil and gas influence. Um, but yes, then the other side, so there is a local candidate running for Congress, sort of progressive, as a progressive Democrat, who we are in conversations with about endorsing. And that's, I guess, has sort of two benefits, or two possible different benefits. I mean, one, if he get elected, of course, that would be, fantastic, in Congress. Or even if we can just help support a candidate who pushes the incumbent to, sort of address these issues and address progressive issues, or um, have confronts, being close to oil and gas, um, that already, even just moving the needle a little bit, is a victory. And, letting the people in power know that there are people locally who care about this issue. I think especially with like local politicians, they respond to what they see, voters care about. And there's a large number of voters who care about, a certain issue, especially in a voter turnout area like this, then, we can get their attention. So yeah, I'd say it's a little bit of both for what we're doing here, and we're sort of still on the early stages of that, in our local hub.
And before going to Moji, I don't know, Matthew, if you were directing that question solely to Jonathan and to Sunrise or also to Move to Amend, but just briefly, from Move to Amend's perspective, we certainly have very consistently over the last decade reached out and tried to do so intently and deliberately with gusto, if you will, in trying to recruit congressional candidates through what we call our pledge to amend, but also sitting public officials to co-sponsor our We the People amendment. So it's been sort of traditional lobbying, but we're under no illusion given the cast of characters and the incredible political power of moneyed interests and corporate interests, and certainly in the issue we're talking about this evening, the polluters, incredible political power. And so traditional lobbying is simply not enough. It does take people power that provides some umph, some force behind it. And increasingly, I think we are coming to the realization, as many of our brothers and sisters in other movements are doing, that given that our political system has been largely captured by corporate interests and by billionaires, that we have to think sort of outside the traditional box, and that can include direct action. That can be traditional things like lobby, not just lobbying and not just vigiling and parading, which sometimes has been successful in getting public officials by embarrassing them to
Fair
come on
enough.
board, but also to think about doing direct action in which we're talking about risking arrest. And I think as we go forward, that's something that we as well as many other organizations are thinking about doing as well. So with that in
Yeah,
mind,
no,
um,
I agree, and I'm glad to hear that from you. As a grassroots uh, political activist, I appreciate the difficulty in reaching politicians and also um, value in people letting their voices be heard. I also feel like we're 1,000 different groups that are struggling to find a unified voice. And I think that is something that I've been going to different political meetings of different organizations, trying to kind of feel what everybody's doing, because I think it's great to everybody has their issues and everything, but if we don't get the right out of power, it's all going to be for naught because we won't be able to do any of our goals. So I just think that it's just really important that we hop to it, get going before we're not able to anymore. But anyway, thank
yeah,
you for addressing
yeah,
my questions. Thank you so
yeah.
much.
Well, grassroots organizing has always been a sort of a foundational principle of what Movement is about, as well as coalition building. So two very important principles. So with that, to Moji. Hey, Moji, please unmute yourself.
I thank you. Um, and thank you, Matthew, for referring to 1,000 different groups, but that are not working together systemically in the way I paraphrased this. Therefore, we don't have the numbers. And first of all, Jonathan, I love your youth, your innocence, and thank you for what you're doing for your future. And on September 20th, 2016, I wrote a poem when I was 61 years old. I wrote a poem for Greta Thunberg when she was 16, and I played on the 61 and 16. And so I've been following the Sunrise Movement as well as the Fridays for Future and similar climate change organizations that are youth-led, which is absolutely important, critical. Uh, my I wanted to bring to your attention the or I mean, I'm sure you know you have it is in your attention, but the laser focus, the absolutely necessary laser focus of the climate change folks over the at least the 2 decades I've been a climate change activist. Um, I I have found that to be a way that they just focus because of the existential demands of the issue, that they don't pay attention sufficiently to building coalition, building collaboration across various civil society causes. I wanted to see what you um, what do you think about this? And I'll put in the chat the link to Chambers of Compassion or Intersectional Circles, which is the Chomsky endorsed project that, as Greg knows, I have been working on for at least 12 years.
For a
Thank you
long,
for what you're doing, Jonathan. And thank you, Greg.
for a long time, Oji, you've been working on it. Well done. Yeah, Jonathan?
Great. Thank you, Boji. I really appreciate that. Yes, I mean, there's definitely, I guess, a challenge, or something that we, always like strive to do in terms of, um, reaching across to different like partner organizations and sort of like broaden our scope and like the people that we work with and the issues that we focus on. And I would say that a lot of our members, probably unsurprisingly, are very involved in other sort of partner or similar minded organizations. I would think locally the sort of Sunrise movement sort of like fills, um, I guess, a gap, I guess, in sort of, progressive or like progressive aligned, um, issue-based, organizations. So, I mean, I talked a little about some like other environmental groups that we've worked with. Those are very valuable, and like I've done other activities with them. They're very local based. They focusing on like local polluters or like SpaceX, like an LNG companies that are trying to set up, um or there's that they work closely with a local indigenous tribe and tribal leaders who are also focused on like very local land issues. There are, in reproductive justice organizations which which we have a lot of membership overlap with, especially here in Texas, where is now very restrictive in terms of abortion laws. And there's a lot of sort of immigration focused organizations. Again, because we're a border community. We're right on the border with Mexico. We have a lot of immigrants and a lot of people with families who are of mixed status, and so border and civil immigration issues and civil rights issues are always um, very front and center. So I think we try to both collaborate, and we always uplift um, you know, organizations that we support, but also try to, fill this sort of gap, because there is really no local climate change focused group. And, talk with people, it is something that people care about. We can talk to, regular, non-activist people, and they are interested in this issue as well. So, I think it's something that it is something we try to balance, and it is a challenge, but I think we, are always working to, both, focus on climate change issue, which doesn't have many other, you know, champions, in Texas or the Rio Grande Valley, but also supporting, partner organizations. And a lot of membership is involved in, our members with, plenty of other organizations. But yes, it is very important. So thank you for highlighting that.
Great. All right, Lawrence, last
Please
word.
look at the link to the Chambers of Compassion.
Yeah, check out the link in
Thank
the
you.
chat. All right, we're going to have one more question and response, and then we're going to move on. Lawrence.
Thank you. So I have a real quick question. I've been thinking about Move On for a while, and I mean, Move to Amend. And sorry, I used to help out with Move On too. And, I think sometimes we sort of make things a little bit more complicated than they have to be. And Move to Amend has had that name for a long time, but I keep thinking it should be something like a demand to amend, because what do you think if every organization, sort of like what Matthew was talking about earlier, if every single justice organization, say labor justice or environmental justice, social justice, peace and justice, if they all added one demand to their mission statement, just a simple demand of all their reps, and that was to pass the We the People Amendment. That if that was it, the one unifying thing that we all demanded, do you think that that could help us get the power we need by really advancing the We the People Amendment and establishing that only humans have the power of our Constitution, real live humans, and then it would kick the corporations out of our politics and out of our government? Do you
Jonathan?
think that that demand could work, John?
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. I wasn't sure that was uh, who that
Should I
was
ask?
focused
Should
at.
I should I
I
ask
would
it again?
say
Oh,
no,
go
no.
ahead.
That's sorry. No, I wasn't
Okay.
sure you're asking me or to Greg. I mean, I would say, yeah. I mean, our sort of core ideology and our core demand is like very closely aligned with Move to Amend. And Alfonso has been a part of our closely working with our organization for a long time, and we were very happy to have our joint event. But yeah, I mean, the basic premise is the same of we want
I
to
didn't
take
mean to
power away
change.
from billionaires.
I didn't mean to change your demand or change
No,
any
no,
other
no, not at all.
organization's demand. I
I
just
mean,
mean add the one demand
mhm,
to it, and not that they have to spend a lot of time uh, working on it. Just that whenever like they're choosing political reps, that would be a litmus test. Like you wouldn't
yeah.
support any rep unless they supported us. That's just sort of my idea.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think as as we're starting going into starting to endorse candidates locally. I mean, that is um, something, yeah, that we do expect of the candidates that they are against corporate personhood.
I see.
And it's certainly we're discussions on exactly how we'll endorse and who will endorse, but certainly something that yes that we should.
Mhm.
I completely agree with you that any candidate we endorse certainly or a candidate we work with, we would expect them to support the move to amend or an end to Citizens United.
Yeah.
And yeah, and collaborating with Move to Amend, has been a good opportunity for us to, share like the Move to Amend petition with our membership base, and
Yeah.
help raise awareness for the broader Move to Amend issue.
And a real
So yeah,
quick
yeah. So
follow up.
yeah, I do agree. Yeah, that
Okay. And a real
it
quick
is something.
follow up question is how could we get other organizations to do that, to see how important it is that they're not likely to get anywhere or not very far until we can diminish the power of corporations and restore the power of the people.
I think a lot of it's just doing things like this and sort of
Okay.
collaborating sort of like one group at a time with like-minded leaders. I mean, I think a lot of issue-based organizations or issue-based like people, they are very focused on their issue and like with very good reason because, again, things like, reproductive care or, immigration, here in Texas, those have real like everyday consequences for people. If someone needs to get medication for an abortion or someone needs to like get a lawyer, like ending, Citizens United is like would help with all that. Um, and I think they would agree with it. But I think also understandably, it's a challenge because I think a lot of people are also, trying to work on issues that relate, health and wellness and survival. So
Yeah.
I guess it's a balance.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Thank
mean,
you.
yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Well, thank you indeed, Jonathan, for your opening comments and taking questions and willingness to work with Move to Amend and looking forward, I know Alfonso is, to the continued collaboration at a local level and certainly Move to Amend writ large, looking at the opportunity to collaborate beyond simply at the local level, as important as that is, given your growth and your diversity. Those are lessons to be learned across the board. And so as time goes on, we will certainly continue to focus as we have begun to do so in figuring out how we might collaborate in a much more expansive way. So, with that, if you feel like you need to break off, that's entirely understandable. We're going to pivot and focus now and ask some of the other individuals who are on the call, who are from all over the place, to consider sharing what it is they have been doing that is related to either solely their environmental work or to the extent that it intersects at all with democracy work, entertain that as well. So we turn the tables and pivot and open it up to all of you. So again, those of you who wish to speak, either raise your physical hand or put in the chat that you wish to speak, or use your virtual hand. The floor is open. Lawrence, I don't know if your hand is still up from before or if it's wanting to be recognized again.
I just raised it again, and I have to go. I'm late for another meeting, but I did want to say that I've been working on a project since 1981 on planting trees throughout Lathrop, California, which is a small community in the Central Valley, in the San Joaquin Valley specifically, just directly east of the San Francisco Bay Area. And they have a storm drain retention ponds to prevent flooding in suburbs because the valley's real flat and big storms would overwhelm the ability to get water out. And they were just sort of an eyesore, not being used for much of anything. And in 81, I got permission to plant native plants. And that project has been ongoing. And the Native Plant Society just gave us a grant. And just yesterday, I bought $3,000 worth of wildflower seeds with the grant money. And we're getting ready to do all a big planting in the fall. And the rains are coming next week. So really exciting stuff, and really happy to share that with you guys.
You were going to be busy over the next week, Lawrence.
Well, actually, we're going to get the seeds, but first we have to spread out the weeds because there's these bromus grasses and wild oats and a bunch of, there's about 3 or 4 weeds that are just by the millions or billions. And the protocol is we start raking the seeds away and put them in a pile to compost. And then as the little shoots come up, we continue raking, and then we start spraying them with vinegar. So we're going to knock down the weeds once or twice and then actually plant the seeds in late November, but we had to buy them now because now's when they run out really fast. So yeah, so I will be busy soon. Yeah.
Great. Just before going to Matthew, I just want to alert, I put in the chat, maybe I should have done this just before we pivoted to all of you, but this is something that Move to Amend has developed, a draft document. It's kind of in final form, but always open to revision, what we call a call to democratize environmental organizing that seeks to acknowledge the good work that people are doing, one issue at a time, one catastrophic environmental harm at a time, one positive economic or environmental issue at a time, but to put that in the larger context of, if you will, all the work that groups are doing being vertical and the effort of trying to democratize it as being more horizontal, that which overarches or undergirds all of the individual work, good work that people are doing. So figuring out a way, as Jonathan mentioned before, to sort of connect the complement or supplement the local work to the systemic work. So with that, Matthew, and then Tim. Unmute yourself.
Okay. I think I'm muted. Thanks again for indulging. So environmentally, a couple of things. One is I did a wilding, backyard wilding of my own home, which was stopping the use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides, and allowing the local flora to grow. And it was very successful. It's a great thing. I wrote a paper about it. I've gone back to school. I'm retired, and I've gone back to school for environmental socialism, and wrote papers about it, and I've been sort of low-key promoting the idea. But the other thing I'm doing a lot of is social media, Instagram, posting and amplifying of other people's posts about a lot of different issues, but among them environmental issues. But the thing I wanted to just comment on was the question about coalitions and reach. And I've noticed a large movement called 5051 all over the country getting hundreds of thousands of participants. And I was thinking if Move to Amend has looked at 5051, like the other person was talking about, just including Move to Amend in their platform sort of thing. And that's all I just wanted to ask about that. Thank you.
Yeah, we have some announcements later on, and that will be the appropriate time where we can comment on that. But yep, absolutely. The short answer is yes, we're trying to collaborate with those larger collaborations and groupings. Tim, and then Janice.
So seems like the organization I belong to seems to think that there's a
Oh, kind of breaking up, Tim.
so is that better?
Uh,
Is that better?
seems to be a little better.
Still
Well,
I'm sorry. It seems like the organization I belong to seems to think that Thursday night is the food.
really still hard. I'm sorry. I don't know if maybe it is.
To fix it.
Yeah, maybe it's the headphones.
Can barely make out a word.
Yeah, it was real tough. Now can't seem to make out anything. I'll tell you what, we're going to come back. I don't know if there's anything you can try to do to.
Is this any better? Is this any better?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah. Computer put me on an audio device that not to work by default.
Well, now the volume is low. It's clear. The voice is clear, but now the volume is lower.
Okay, is that better?
Ah, yes.
Sorry. Have to adjust my hardware sometimes. Unfortunate, but it's true. Where was night? But every organization I belong to seems to think that Thursday night is my free night. So it would be, except that I have to do so many things at once.
Oh.
Working is starting to kick off a Massachusetts chapter. So they had a big fundraising event for that tonight. That was part of what kept me back. Anyway, as far as what I've been doing a lot of, I started out as a climate activist and actually tried to launch a clean tech company, but the human race have come to its senses and start to throw money hand over fist at the climate problem. Instead, fracking sent the price of natural gas through the floor, so renewables were less competitive. The Great Recession of 2008 hit, and Congress, in its wisdom, failed to put a price on carbon, launching a clean tech startup, a rather bad time to do it anyway. But that was then, and now is now, and I've since come to realize a certain intersectionality between the climate movement and the peace movement. And I'm going to summarize that in a single sentence, which I put into the chat, which has sort of become my motto. And what it says is that, to go into more detail, we won World War II not by dropping atomic bombs or killing a lot of people. We won it by of fuel to the Axis, so they were no longer able to fight a modern war. We're not targeting Japanese destroyers. They were targeting their oil tankers. Similar things were going on in Europe, where Germany was struggling to get access to various sources of oil, and we were the Allies were struggling quite successfully in the end to cut off their the military race seems to uh, uh, true that the military emits huge amounts of pollution. In fact, if they're stopped using oil, well, even the Pentagon's budget is not sufficient to develop the Prudhoe Bay uh, deep water offshore drilling or that are needed in order to find, develop, drill, and refine
Still
and
kind of
deliver.
a little choppy now, Tim. So if you can maybe sum
Well,
up.
okay. The military is the main impediment to, or the military industrial complex more generally is the main reason why we haven't kicked the oil crisis yet, the same way we solved the ozone crisis many years ago. And so until we manage to put an end to war as a backstop to failed diplomacy, which we don't even really try that hard with these days, not stop climate change. So I've been spending a lot of time on the peace movement, and the local chapter of Peace Action, Mass Peace Action, is very active, and that's where it stays. I'll put that link in the chat, but I encourage everyone to learn more about this. If you're really into it, you can read a historical account of it, over 1,000, called Oil, Power, and War, A Dark History. Available on Amazon and elsewhere, which documents the historical content. You won't hear about it anywhere else, though, I'm afraid.
Great.
Either on climate movement or even the peace movement for the most part.
Yeah, if you
Right,
could put that in if you could put that title in the chat, because I'm not sure we caught all of the title. So that'd be great. All right. Again, we're looking for summaries of actions related to environmental concerns. Janice.
Thank you. Well, I mentioned public banking in my previous comment, but I have to say, as a overarching statement, the only way this problem is going to be solved is going to be by changing the monetary system. The comment's been made that if whoever controls the money controls the population, and today that's true of the entire earth. Interest-bearing, profit-taking money controls the world. So that's kind of an overarching thing, but to start combating that, Alfonso had referred me to you, so I just wanted to touch base with you real quickly and ask you if there's a way that I could start making calls. Like, we have this huge population, even right here where I am, and of course throughout the state we have 20 million registered voters, and it would be lovely. I would love to follow up on the move to amend signatures that we've already gotten, since I did receive access to the the software. I forgot what it's called. Anyway,
Nation Builder.
Nation Builder, right? So I just wanted, since I had a chance, Greg, I wanted to just touch base with you on that. So that's what I will be doing in regard to the category that you're in right now.
All right. I will give you a call.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Anyone else want to share any update about their environmental doings?
Mark Stack.
Please, Mark.
Yeah. I'm the head of a Catholic social justice ministry in Free Parish Collaborative. And in the spring, in early January sometime, I mean, not January, but early 2026, one of our topics among many is going to be the environment and climate change. As you know, I think pretty much everybody knows that Pope Francis wrote our common home encyclical on climate change that basically put the Catholic Church, at least from his position, foursquare behind addressing climate change. And so one of the things that I'm looking at, and haven't really decided upon how we want to create this program, but it seems like most people, like myself, feel woefully uninformed and uneducated about our own personal homes, our own personal use of products and recycling, and then what products, how to avoid worsening climate change. So I'm just throwing that out there, just saying that's an area we're looking at, trying to maybe do like a seminar or webinar program that's going to help people become educated in their own immediate environment. As well as I'm very intrigued by the sunrise movement. I noticed that there's a sunrise movement associated with Emory University in Atlanta, which is close to us. So I'd like to connect with them and learn more from them as well. But that's my report, or my little bit of news. With that, I pass. Thanks.
I just wonder if anybody on the call, I mean, there's got to be something out there that is already prepared, that is something that is a tutorial, if you will, on what are ways in your personal life that one can act more sustainably. There has to be. So I don't know if anybody knows about that, anything. If so, feel free to put that in the chat.
If
But
anybody wants to contact me, I'm happy to provide my contact information.
why don't you
So,
put that in the chat, Mark, in case
all
somebody
right,
do that right now.
thanks.
Okay, any other reports? If not, we're trying to be mindful of the time. We try to have these calls last no longer than what would be at this point the bottom of the hour. So if not, one last call. Okay, so with that, I want to turn to the rest of the agenda. What we normally do at this point is just give a very brief update of the We the People amendment, which is we have 65 co-sponsors. We have a 66 that is ready to come on board, but with the government shutdown, that part of the government is on hiatus, as much of the rest of the government is. So that is a negative. Obviously, it makes it more challenging to reach our representatives on the one hand. On the other hand, maybe not. With the government being shut down, in part, who knows where these reps are? Senators, anyway, or in DC, reps for the most part are in district, traveling somewhere in district, since they've not been officially called back. So there are opportunities if the goal is to reach your representative directly, the opportunity to do that, whether it is to lobby and urge him or her or them to co-sponsor the We the People amendment. That would be probably most likely locally. However, we have found that historically during the August recess, when representatives are home, their district offices are still running, maybe at only half speed, but nevertheless, it is half speed and there isn't as much work to be done. And so, I should say, DC aides are much more accessible. So, counterintuitively, it might actually be easier to reach out to your key DC aides that deal with things like campaign financing, judicial issues, or the like. So, for anyone interested in connecting the work they're doing with Move to Amend and the We the People amendment, feel free to reach out to us. I'd be happy to join you and others in your congressional district to try to organize a meeting with an appropriate DC aide. So, two ways again to go about it, either directly to your rep right there where you are, or through an aide that, it's not necessarily lesser, because those aides oftentimes know as much, if not more, about a particular issue area than their boss. So take that for what it's worth. Any questions or comments on that? All right. If not, sort of the last major area is a call to action. And I don't know if Jenny, Alfonso, either of you want to talk about No King's Day.
I'll be happy to, but I think Janie might be the best person. She's been the liaison, directly dealing with that. Janie, I don't know if you're in a position.
Yeah.
Sure. Um, yeah, and again, apologies for being late. I was so looking forward to this. Two of my children had their birthdays today, so
Ah,
I was also juggling that and kind of lost track of time with getting their stuff together. We're having I even planned their dinner for after 8:30 so that I could be here. And then anyway, I will catch up. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for coming. No King's Day. This is No Kings 2.0. As y'all know, um, there was there has been a No Kings action that's already happened. We are a partnering organization for that. And I would come on camera, but my camera's not working for some reason. And it's going to be October 18th. It's There's over 2,400 cities that are participating. This is a mass action. I mean, we're seeing things pop up all over the place. Chicago today had thousands of people come out into the streets. Portland's been, doing some great street art. And that's what No Kings is about. We're going to have fun. We're going to come in mass action. I think this one was initially pushed for by the Women's March folks, but the movement is working in coordination with each other like we've never had the opportunity to do so before. So this is really important to plug in to wherever you're at. I'm personally going to be doing my action here in Pensacola, and then I'm packing up all of my stuff and heading to the action in the next city because it's a couple of hours later and I can get there and get set up in time. So I'm going to double tag team it for this October 18th. It's next Saturday. It's coming up quick. We need, at least 3.5% of the population with sustained pressure for systemic change, right? That's what the studies show. I'm going with that. I say, let's do it. We're seeing it all over the place. And does anybody have any questions? If you already have signed up, if you could also use the source code, the Move to Amend source code, so we know who from Move to Amend is participating and share that out too, that would be great. But yeah, are there any questions about that? Y'all probably already know and are planning to participate, so I don't want to get it too much into the trenches. I am working very closely with our local 5051 to answer. I don't think he's on the call anymore, but to answer that question. And at the local levels, we're definitely doing that, and nationally connecting whenever and hearing the calls in any way that we can collaborate. With the movement in general. So, oh, it was you, Tim. Great. Okay. I'm glad you got the answer then. Any questions about that? And one of the aspects that we're using, like we did a couple of days ago, was signs of fascism. And, we're all dressed in black with masks and hats and all holding signs of examples of fascism. So white signs with signs of black fascism at the front, and then all the fascist, actions that have been taken, authoritarian actions that are emulating out of this regime. And so we're going to be unfurling that again during the action here. And then I plan to take the signs and see if we can't unfurl it in Panama City as well. So get creative when you get out there, have some fun, make some beautiful signs. This is serious stuff that we're always dealing with, but it doesn't mean we can't have fun and we can't, express ourselves in the most creative, beautiful ways possible, with the radical love that we have for, you know, each other and for the environment. So,
Yep.
hope to see y'all in the streets.
Yep. Hopefully everyone is participating to the extent they can and have the time and capacity. I put in the chat, I think, a very important article that recently appeared in Common Dreams, written by a guy named Ben Mansky, actually one of the co-founders of Move to Amend, who talks about the importance of having the visibility and the courage to be out there. It is important that we show up because it sort of tamps down the degree of violence that the authoritarians are trying to display. And it talks about Mansky is a person who's done a lot of studies of revolutions around the world and has depicted and concluded that when violence is only sort of in the middle range, it backfires. They show their hand. And the only way that can happen to that degree of medium degree and not ratchet it up is if we are out there. So a real important piece, I think, to read, to internalize, and to share. And the piece prior to that is a link to a flyer that Move to Men is using when we show up that's connecting the authoritarianism with corporate rule. And so, going forward, I think from an environmental perspective, the same can be done. How does authoritarian connect to destruction of the environment? Plundering people, plundering the environment, plundering democracy. Guess what? They all involve one thing, plundering. So figuring out a way to develop the twist and the angle and the link that connects the issues that you care about with what is going on right now is really important. So something to think about. Anything else before we break? Oftentimes here is where we share an important articles or doings in the larger ecological sphere, whether it's nationally or internationally. This is an important piece. I ran into recently an article challenging corporate power and rights have never been so important by a environmental activist in the United Kingdom, Helena Paul, who it turns out did some work collaboratively many years ago, a couple decades ago, with the program on corporations, law, and democracy. And she makes the intersection between the power of corporate entities and the inability and difficulty and challenge to work as she's been doing in Great Britain and writ large, the work that we are all doing environmentally around the world. A very fine piece. Encourage you to take a look at it. Yes, Barbara. You're on mute.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that I put in the chat that, one of the things that I do is I teach people about abandoned oil and gas wells and the effect on health and I lead, and especially I'm leading a walk here through the city of Bradford, where we have wells in people's yards and next to the hospital and all kinds of other important infrastructure and to make people aware and to try to fight the companies that own the local oil and gas infrastructure.
Very important work. Very well done. Thank you, Barbara. Mark? Mark's going to
Yes,
have
I'm sorry. Yes.
you're going to have the last
I
word,
was
and then we're
trying
going to
to.
close.
Okay, I was trying to find the article so I could post it, and I can't find it real quickly. But just recently, I think I did copy you and Jenny and Alfonso and so forth on the fact that in Alaska, the no road rule for pristine public lands has been the government in the past has refused to provide roads into these lands to enable transportation, but that's been overturned in the case of a particular effort of a consortium of Canadian mining interests to mine copper, cobalt, and lithium and other minerals in a particular mine in Alaska. But the thing that I found also very disturbing was that the current Trump administration has invested the U.S. government into 10% of the stocks into these projects. So not only are they permitting this environmental destruction with the new roads and the mining, they're also actually investing the U.S. government into these projects financially, owning shares in the project. And to me, I just found that to be extraordinarily alarming. The collaboration, the collusion between private and, again, as they say, private public corporations, a whole new twist.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
whole new degree of insidiousness
Corruption.
between
Yes.
private, what do they call it? Private and public partnerships.
Yes. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
Yeah. So
exactly what
anyway,
it
I
is.
just wanted to highlight that to people, and I can't find the link real quickly, or I had to put it in the chat so you all could look it over. But
Okay. Yeah.
anyway,
All
yeah.
right, Lawrence.
That is so amazing to me because it reminds me of the book Treasure Island, where they talk about, the pirates, and Robert Louis Stevenson was right here in Oakland at Jack London Square, listening to all the sailors in the bar. The bar is still there, by the way. It's a really neat little bar right on the bay shore, and learning that what it was like to during the age of discovery, for people to go out and get on these ships and go out and exploit the whole world for their benefit. And it was all a giant corporation. And the king and the queen were often primary shareholders to share in the profit. And he tells the little boy, "We don't call ourselves pirates; we call ourselves gentlemen of fortune."
Mm.
And there we are, back in time again.
Or as they say, as I say, it's a brand new, same old story.
Yeah, and I see a
So,
nice comment in the chat.
yep. All right. Well, with that, sorry for keeping you beyond our normal maximum time, but so glad that all of you were able to join. Thank you again, Jonathan, for being with us and for sharing the good work you were doing with the collaboration of Alfonso. I don't know, Alfonso, anything you want to add before we close?
Not really, just looking forward to potential future collaboration, local at the national level, and we just gonna echo again the gratitude to Jonathan for being here with us tonight.
Great. And so with that, thank you. Our call in November is, what is it here? The 13th, is that right? So that's where hopefully you will occupy this space at that time at the same hour. So with that, take care, everyone. Thanks so much.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you so much. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Hi,
much,
all. Good seeing
Jonathan.
you.